All right, if you're anything like me, you hate running out of food on a trip. It's like a big fear, and so I'm a big fan of snacks during an adventure, and one of my absolute favorite go-to snacks are wonderful pistachios. You may be familiar with pistachios and the brand Wonderful Pistachios, but if you're not, they are one of the highest protein nuts out there. 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios is 6 grams of protein. That's 10% of your daily value. It also includes 9 essential amino acids, and they come with a ton of different flavors, varieties. There's a spicy version, there's lightly salted, there's no salted, there's so many, and every time I go on an adventure, I'm not even lying, I take an entire bag with me. And what's cool too, I love having the Wonderful Pistachio in shell, because then that almost gives me something to do and focus on as I'm paddling or biking through the really monotonous parts of the adventure. Every great adventure is going to have plenty of boring moments, and it's nice to have something to do and also something that is giving you some fuel, like Wonderful Pistachios. So they're one of my favorite adventure snacks, favorite road trip snacks, and definitely leave me feeling better than a lot of other snacks you can turn to. So if you want to learn more about how to fuel your next adventure with Wonderful Pistachios, go to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today we are talking to an alumni of the show, Jennifer Strong McConachie, who was on the show back in episode 858, How Endurance Sports Helps You Win at Life. And that was about Jennifer's book, Go Far. Well, today we are talking to Jennifer about another part of this Go series called Go Multisport. Add fun, challenge, and exploration to your world. And what it's about is how to combine the sports we love to experience different parts of adventure, different aspects in the same window of time. So if you've got a weekend to do something, maybe consider combining a few different sports rather than just biking or just running or just camping this weekend. Throw in, a hike, or throw in something you don't typically do or something new, and how much of a different perspective it can give you, how much more enriched the experience is. I mean, there's like a million ways you can do this, but it's all under this umbrella of multisport. And so Jennifer is going to talk to us about how she does it. She's got some really, really cool adventures she's done, and also some challenges she does. She does really cool stuff on her birthday every year. There's just all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I've kind of started getting into this, like, hey, what if we bike up here and then raft back, or vice versa, or hike around this lake and then kayak across it. I've done a couple adventures like that recently, and just the different mediums bring out, obviously different muscle groups and different parts of us, and you experience the same place in such a different way. And so I thought this was a really cool idea, and it's great having Jennifer back on. And we're going to give away one of the copies of the book, Go Multisport. All you need to do is email me at info@adventuresportspodcast.com and say, I want to go multisport. And if you are one of the first people to do that, or if you can do that in the first, let's say 48 hours of the release of this episode, you will be entered to win a copy of Go Multisport. Again, that is, email me. You can also Facebook message, Instagram message me, Adventure Sports Podcast. It's all the same. Or email is info@adventuresportspodcast. I want to go multisport. All right, let's go ahead and dive in, or bike in, or run in, or whatever adventure sport you want it to be. All right, folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Today, we are having an alumni of the show. I often talk about this, by the way, Jennifer. It's like, I'll do a revisited episode once a week, and I'm like, we should have this person back on to hear an update. And you're one of the few that we actually do that with, having this follow-up. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Always glad to be back. Maybe I'll be back again in the future too.
I'm telling you, I think this Go fill in the blank, Go Far, Go Multisport, you've got something going on here to do for the long haul. And so, the last time you were on, episode 858, How Endurance Sports Help You Win at Life. Today we're talking about multisport. And so, we really want to hear what that is, what kind of got this going for you, this idea? And also, before we get started, I always ask where you're coming from. Last time we talked, you're based in Kansas. Is that still the case?
Yes. Yes, I am based in Wichita, Kansas. So that's where I am today, coming off a holiday weekend and in the Midwest.
Oh, it's awesome. I just got back from the Midwest last week, and I was just raving to my wife. I'm like, I just love the Midwest. Everyone's
Oh,
so
that's
nice.
awesome.
There's so much space. Yeah, so tell us about this new project, Go Multisport. Add fun, challenge, and exploration to your world. What is this? How is this different than Go Far?
Well, Go Multisport is really a book that I wanted to write to reflect something that I did as an athlete in multiple areas, but also something that I was seeing happening, especially with guests on your show. And I was seeing that people who were going out and creating their own challenges and their own adventures and combining sports together and dreaming up fastest known times in expeditions and self-supported events. And I wanted to write about it, and I wanted to kind of define the genre, because there's a lot of books about specific one-off mountain climbing adventures or one-off really hard challenges. And there's books about training for a typical traditional multi-sport, which might be a triathlon of swim, biking, and running, or even getting into the world of adventure racing, which is similar, and involves a couple more sports or off-road versions thrown in, like off-road mountain biking or trail running, more of the paddling sports. And so there's been books written about each of those things. But what I was kind of doing felt really unique, and something I was seeing through the industry leaders and especially people that have been a guest on your show. And that was the idea of being a multi-sport athlete and the concept of multi-sport. And so how I define multi-sport is one or more human-powered sports combined together. And so that has a long history. We think about triathlons, we think about duathlons or biathlon. And yes, biathlon includes a sport we might not traditionally think of, but it is a human-powered sport of cross-country skiing and shooting. And then also some of the experience in the world of like aquathon, or something that I kind of came up with called a duaquathon. So taking the elements of a duathlon, biking and running, and then doing it in a different way, in an aquathon way, and making a duaquathon. And so these are some of the history of how I've seen sports be created and used and sort of evolved, and how I was using all of those experiences that I had racing in each of these different arenas and climbing on mountains, going on expeditions, and combining all of that, what was going on in my training and what was going on in the wider world of endurance sports. And that was the multi-sport concept of taking one or more human-powered sports and combining into one go and one outing. And the beauty of that is that it's what sports you want to do. You get to choose your own. And so as somebody who loves to swim, I usually like to include lots of open water swimming in some of my multi-sport events. And that's something that doesn't always get included in a triathlon. A lot of times the swim section can be really short compared to the biking and running section. But with multi-sport, whoever is designing it, you are the creator, you are the inventor, you are the designer. And so if you want to go cross country ski in the winter a really long way and follow that by wild ice skating on a river, that's totally in your control. And if you want to do lots of open water swimming followed by stand-up paddleboarding across a lake, you're also the one in the driver's seat getting to decide, where do you want to go? Where do you want to explore? What do you want to see? Who do you want to do it with? Do you want to go out of state? Do you want to go out of country? Or do you just want to go to the next county or the next state line from where you're currently located? And so it was really about Go Multisport is a book that's really about defining a new movement in sport, explaining what it is, how to do it, and some of the fun examples of stuff that I've come up with over the years.
Did you see this growing in popularity? Because I work a lot with triathletes in my day job, and that is obviously a well-established multi-sport concept. But are there like budding concepts that are really taking off that you're seeing, or is it just kind of just people being interested in multiple sports at the same time is really the idea that's growing?
That's really kind of what I'm seeing. And so my experience was years as a triathlete, years of an adventure racer. And then I got into when I was mountain climbing, and a lot of the stories that I wrote about in my first book, Go Far, competing in international swimming events, climbing some of the tallest mountains in the world, running ultra marathons. I was doing those events simultaneously. So I was training I would come off of long run training and then kind of switch into open water. And then I would be in really good shape to go long days on for glacial mountain climbing. And like having that really intense training, I felt like it parlayed itself into the other athletic arenas. And so I felt like when being a multi-sport athlete, somebody who trained for several sports at a time was really beneficial, and it helped me not get burnt out, and it helped me switch things up, and it really helped performance because I was able to kind of avoid overuse injuries. And as soon as you're like, okay, I've just come off this really hard thing, I can kind of take a break from that and switch gears and do something else. And so when that kind of phase of my life, kind of wrapping up some of that, I wanted to take all of that and still train for expeditions, but not necessarily have to go to another country, and not necessarily have to be just one sport focused. And I was kind of over the triathlons because that almost seemed short and like not that much of a challenge because I'd done it for so long. Adventure racing I loved, but again, it was always somebody else's idea. And so I started creating multi-sport events to go do on the weekend to sort of replicate really hard, long endurance challenges that get all the sports in. And so one of the very first multi-sports that I designed when I was training for adventure racing is that I really wanted to do a 24-hour adventure race, and I just couldn't find a race that appealed to me. So if you're out there and you're just looking for something to train for and you're just not finding it, Go Multisport is going to teach you how to make your own event that you want to train for, plan for, create, design. And so it gives you all the power. You can set the perfect date. If you have a full summer full of weddings and commitments and nothing's falling on the right weekend, you can do your multi-sport. You can start at 5 o'clock on a Friday after work, or you can start at 11 a.m. after you get the kids dropped off. And one of these examples was designing a 24-hour adventure race. And so I did that on my 2 local rivers, 2 local lakes. It was like 80 miles of mountain biking, kind of in the city, in the country, had a little bit of both, connected a couple of lakes and a couple of rivers, did a midnight start in a thunderstorm. And so had mountain biking, trekking to kind of help connect the two, and paddling. And that was kind of the very beginning of designing a long multi-sport. And then as I kind of got more into paddling, I wanted to do more paddling and more open water swimming. So another example of one of the first multi-sports that I designed was leaving my house at like 4 a.m. and running 6 miles to a lake, cold. So putting on a wetsuit and like a swim cap for like a really cold spring swim, Don't have to do that if you just want, the summertime experience or the open water experience. But if you're wanting to get more out of your sporting season, a wetsuit's an option. Swimming a mile across the lake and back, and then hopping out, and then running 8 more miles to a predetermined location to then portage a kayak down to the river. And then I designed this route to kayak 18 miles back to where I started in my neighborhood that's really close to this river. And then doing a mountain bike around the neighborhood to kind of get that fourth sport in. And so that was a way that I didn't even drive anywhere. I just left from my house and did this really cool multi-sport event. I actually did it on my birthday. I didn't have to sign up for anything. I didn't have to plan. It was the weekend. It was the time that worked for me. But I was able to use a river that I love and kayak rapids down that. I was able to do some open water swimming. It wasn't super short. It was a lot of running. It's 15 miles of running. So you kind of I had to be trained. But it was just really fun and really rewarding to explore my local landscape and create this really fun event and this route. That it really didn't matter what time I got because no one had ever done it before. And so it was less about racing the clock. For anybody who is an athlete and has been an athlete for a long time and has done a lot of competitive racing against time, as you get older, for me, I kind of was ready to just chill a little bit, and I still wanted to work hard. I still wanted to push myself, but I didn't necessarily have to keep getting a faster time because I kind of reached those goals. And so this creating and designing my own multi-sport to go do took the pressure off of, oh, I got to get this time. And it put the emphasis on exploring and challenging myself to, am I going to be able to run a long ways, swim a mile in cold water, and then run longer than you would run in just a different combination, in a different way of running than just a traditional prescribed race? And so those are just kind of two examples. Those are really simple, using kind of the sports that I was already doing. And we can kind of talk more about the ideas behind it, or I could share more examples for winter time. But I just really wanted to codify and say, you can create whatever it is you want to do. And a really fun way to do that is, yes, you can go out and do really far expeditions in one sport. And I know you and I are a fan of that, of long paddles and long runs and long one sport expeditions. But when you do multiple sports, it's even more fun, and you can go further and not get as tired and do more exploring and use all of those different skills that you have amassed over years of being an athlete and put them to use on a weekly level. You don't have to just save it for the big competition. It's hard to sustain competitive, mountain climbing, aggressively going out and mountain climbing, but it's not hard to sustain doing a multi-sport every couple weekends or so. So it really was an evolution of, where do you go next as an endurance athlete? And multi-sport was that for me, and I wanted to share that with other people.
For you, does doing all these sports, and especially they're around the same area because you're jumping from one sport to another in a single experience, does it help you see the same place in a different way through these different sports?
Oh my goodness, Mason, that is such a good question, because I live on a river, and I have paddled and done just about every single thing you could think of to do on that river. And this is one of the stories I tell in the book. One winter, I was doing a lot of kayak training for a long event, and I went out, and the river was frozen over. And so I think I talked a little bit about this when we were talking about Go Far, is that I ended up doing ice paddling on this river and having this whole new experience on my same river. And one of the things I did this year is that we had a very cold but not a lot of snow Midwest winter. And so kind of taking the ice paddling to the next level, the river froze solid enough that we were able to go ice skating on it. And so I just never would have thought, living somewhere your whole life and doing all kinds of stand-up paddleboarding and rowing and kayaking and canoeing and rafting, I never would have thought that I would go out and be wild ice skating. And this is something that's like big in Alaska, and you can go for a long ways. And here I was doing it in Kansas because we happen to have the perfect conditions. And ice skating, I totally include as part of a multi-sport sport on the sports list, because it is human powered and you can go a really long way on it. And so I did that one evening and kind of really did safety, a lot of safety, got all the tools to test the ice, and was very conservative and very prepared on that end. I don't ever want to say, hey, this is easy and you can just go do it without thinking about it. There is a lot of safety precaution involved. But after kind of doing a test run, the next weekend, it was still very cold and very solid ice. And so I did a run. And then I switched into my ice skates and a little bit heavier clothes and did an ice skating expedition around an island. So skated to an island and back. And that's on a river that I know very well, and just had a completely new experience by doing a multi-sport, by trying one new form of self-propelled, human-powered endurance sport. So that's sort of the beauty of it, is that as the seasons change, you can change what you're doing as far as your endurance sports. And in the book, I have this like massive list of everything from a lot of it has been inspired by guests on the show. It's sort of the extreme sports that you could do. Everything from rowing to like snow kiting to hikes, which are like sail powered bikes, but that you can also do like sail powered ice skating or sail powered biking or all kinds of skateboarding, that kind of thing. So it's really anything that is human power that I include. And I have like a really long list divided up into 6 different categories. And so some of the categories are like wheels, all kinds of different bikes. And that's a way of trying something different. So if you're always road biking, there's mountain biking, there's gravel biking. This winter, I did a lot of snow biking, and I just used my mountain bike because that's what I had. But it was a totally different experience because it's one of those things, like I kept hoping I'd be able to like go on vacation and do snow biking, and I just haven't yet. And so I just did it this winter when it snowed, and I just put on the mountaineering gear and got totally wet, had a great time, like combined it with a run. And that was just a way to stay active in the same general area, but in a totally new way. So things like cross country skiing, like snowshoeing, like trying a snow bike, like wild ice skating. Those are a lot of things that I did this winter that I really just hadn't done before. No good reason. And Go Multisport gave me this beautiful reason, this beautiful framework to invest in the gear, because that's investing in your health and your longevity and your happiness and your being active and you're being outside. So it's a good investment. And just going out and doing more versions of sport, because I am trying to live this multi-sport lifestyle. Another kind of example is that I am really inspired by the kind of guests that you have on the show who are doing these really extreme fastest known time events, or these challenges where they're climbing mountains or going on unsupported rows across oceans, these really cross-continental journeys. And I wanted to take the ideas behind those and help people create similar experiences that they can have on a long weekend or a long day. And Go Multisport can help you do that. You don't have to say, hey, I don't live in Norway, but I really want to go on one of those ski packraft expedition journeys. Those look so cool, where I'm towing my packraft and I'm skiing and I'm climbing mountains and I'm gone for 3 days in the Arctic snow. That is amazing. And that is what I'm inspired by. And I was able to create one of those own events where I am by using my pack raft and some snowshoes. I went out. We had like we finally had an 8-inch snow. I went out one evening with my husband and we snowshoed over to our river with our pack rafts, sort of pulling behind us like a polk sled in the Arctic, and hopped in the water, did a cold paddle, and then snowshoed back, pulling the pack rafts. And would I love to go do a 3-day adventure like that in Norway? Absolutely. But in the meantime, I did it in a couple of hours in the evening to, one, see how did it feel? Did I like it? Did I have the right gear? Is this something I would want to invest more in? And doing that through the lens of Go Multisport, I was able to see what are the leaders in extreme sports doing? Where are they going? What kind of things are they doing? How are they combining things? And then I was able to replicate that on a doable, easy local level. And that really is what the book is about, is saying, let's be inspired by these huge months-long undertakings, and let's train and create and do in our own way, wherever we are.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. Hey folks, if you know me, you know that I love coffee and I need it to function, and that doesn't change when I'm on an adventure. In fact, I'm drinking some right now. And that's why I really enjoy the AeroPress Go Plus. You might have heard of AeroPress. It's this easy way, really convenient way to make some of the smoothest, almost velvety coffee with a full body finish, but in a very convenient, packable system that's perfect for travel, perfect for adventures, and really mess-free. You know, I like French press at home because I like that full-bodied flavor, but it's really hard to replicate in a way that isn't really inconvenient when you're traveling. And so this past weekend on our Swamp Drifters paddling adventure, I brought the AeroPress Go Plus with me, and I ended up making coffee for everybody, like 15 people. It's so cool. You put the grounds in, you put the water in, you take the plunger and you push it down right into the cup, and then you open the bottom filter, push the grounds out, and then just do a new one. It's mess-free. It was super convenient, and it made really high-quality coffee for everybody. And so we didn't have to stick with instant like we've done in the past. If you want to give it a shot, go to aeropress.com/ASP. That's AEROPRESS.com/ASP. You can also use the promo code ASP to save 20% off your order. That's aeropress.com/ASP and use the code ASP at checkout for 20% off. It's time to say goodbye to crappy coffee as you travel, as you adventure, and yes, to better adventures fueled by better coffee. We thank AeroPress for sponsoring our show. Every year, the number and scope of data breaches worldwide is rising. The likelihood of your own data getting breached is always increasing. Your data, location history, social security number, all that leaks, and people are out there looking for that information and willing to pay for it. The good news is that you have the right to protect your privacy and request that data brokers delete information they hold about you, because it can happen without you even knowing it. The bad news is it would take you years to do it manually, just one time, and you need to repeat the process every few months. And this is how Incogni can help you put an end to this problem. They conduct repeated removal requests, which means that whenever a new record pops up on a data broker site, Incogni will automatically take care of it. The whole process is automated. All you got to do is create an account and tell them what personal data information you want to be removed, grant them the right to work with you, and they will contact data brokers on your behalf, and then just kick back and let them work. If you'd like to let Incogni help you remove that data repeatedly for peace of mind, go to incogni.com/adventuresports. That's incogni.com/adventuresports. You can use the discount code adventuresports as well. I'd say at least go there, learn some more information. You know, if you're something you're interested in, they have a subscription plan for as low as $6.49 a month. Go to the show notes and you can see all that information. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. Oh, Jennifer, I love that. You know, that's a big theme on this show, is exploring where you are. Because, I mean, around me, I've got to be up there with people who like want to explore an area, and even someone who has explored a lot of their own backyard, every time I go out, there's something new I come across, whether it be a species of bird or animal I've never seen or didn't know was here, or a place that I just didn't know existed. And so when you start to see the world like that, I think anywhere can be as exciting or as adventurous as the farthest flung places in the world on those A-list adventure lists. I just feel like it's a perspective more than it is a destination. And I'm sure multisport helps you see that.
It totally is. And sometimes for someone who just spent years running, as soon as I started doing more sports, more paddling, you're seeking out, well, where would be a good place to paddle? Or could I bike here? And then maybe I could also swim, or maybe I could just run here. So when you have Go Multisport, when you're thinking about different things you want to do, you see your same area differently. And I love how by exploring your own neighborhood and a city, how you can think that you know something, or even if you knew it 20 years ago, and you can go back and see it with fresh eyes through a new sport or a new sort of combination that you've created. And one of my absolute favorite sections of the book is about urban exploring, because we think a lot of times that if we're going to go explore, we have to get out of town. We have to go to the state park or the lake or the nature reserve, or we have to kind of drive far away. And sometimes you do. But urban exploring is, I spent a lot of time this fall exploring a bunch of creeks and drainage canals, and they weren't in the best part of town. But I was driving by them. I was taking the highway. I was seeing them, and I was so curious. I just had to go down and find out where does this go. And so I did some sort of trekking and running and hiking and sort of linked various creeks and drainage portions together. And the book does kind of tell sort of a big story about linking city waterways together. But you can use box culverts and go under highways, and you can explore how rivers connect, and how, maybe there's a bike trail, but maybe it doesn't connect, or maybe you want to use the trails that you have in town to create a circumnavigation of something, not just, oh, I'm going to go on an X mile ride, but I'm going to ride to an event, or I'm going to ride my kids to their drop off location, or I want to circle the whole city by bike. And that trail doesn't actually exist by that, but I'm going to create it. Urban exploring downtowns and parking garages and running the stairs you see. And that's one of the really cool things too, that you can do multi-sport. It doesn't just have to be in nature. It can be in a city. It could be on concrete, because you're the engine. You are the power. So you can go wherever you want to go.
Do you go over creeks now, in as you're driving by, you look over the edge of the railing like, ooh, what's down there? Because that's what I do with paddleable little
Goodness.
creeks and waterways. And I just think, I have driven past this a million times, never thought twice. Now that I have this perspective, once you're on the water, because that's kind of the thing I'm really into right now, is like paddling these small little waterways. You are transported into a different dimension. It feels like that water passing under that bridge, being on it itself. You feel a million miles away from that road directly above you, and the road that you then paddle away from. It is such a amazing phenomenon. And I wonder if you feel that same way.
Oh, I'm just obsessed with it. It's so fun, and it's been really fun for our kids too, to say you went there, or this connects to the river by our house. And it makes your like commuting and your daily life, which is kind of okay, it's kind of mundane. It makes it exciting, because you're like, oh my goodness, I was there. Or how does it look in winter? How does it look in fall? Maybe I could go ice skate that weird little creek. Is it frozen solid? And it's just a really fun way of, again, like, you don't have to live in the mountains and live like with this glorious nature out your back door, you can live in the middle of the city and still find lots of really cool, fun things to do. You just have to look and notice and see them, or go out and have an experience that kind of opens your eyes to them. And if you're looking for that, Go Multisport, the book, is like a really cool way to start, because if you haven't had that experience, it can kind of open up your eyes of some things to look for. Whereas where we've gone out and done so much paddling and just seeing it, we got a whitewater raft this year to do some really big expeditions on some big rivers. Long-term goal, lots of logistics. But just even thinking along those terms, that's a totally different kind of watercraft than, say, a pack raft that is a small inflatable kayak that is super mobile and you can put in your back and run and bike with. This raft is a whole nother thing, especially if you're wanting to take it on like a big commercial American river. But that's another way to just look at things, study things. I'm always a fan of like pairing what you're doing with some sort of book. And some of the big American rivers, there's so many great novels, historical fiction, actual like nonfiction facts and data about these places that we all remember as in America, we all learned in US history as kids, but going out and living it. And maybe you're hiking and you find yourself on the Santa Fe Trail. And you want to, and that actually happened to me over the weekend. like, and it's like, hey, I want to go back and I want to read about this and I want to read stories about it because I'm out here actually doing it. And it's giving me a different perspective than just learning about it.
You know, in your exploration and kind of compiling these lists of different sports that you can then combine, did you see any themes around, kind of like with food pairing, certain foods or certain drinks go with different meals? Did you see certain multi-sports kind of pairing together really well, and that really maybe had a really good rounded use of skills and equipment and mediums, or was it just a combination of all sorts of random things?
Well, the beauty of it is that you can choose what interests you. And so when I did adventure racing, each adventure race was a different length, a different location. And usually in adventure racing, they will throw in like a random sport. Like sometimes you'll have to scooter or rollerblade or horseback ride. Or if you're doing an international event in the desert, you might have to camel ride. And so those are as small as like local Midwest events to like international eco challenge kinds of things. And so for me, when I looked at what do I want to go out and do? What is fun? I wanted to do more of sort of the grab bag sports, because they brought more joy than just kind of pounding it out on a bike. Been there, done that. Good to use, but like, what else can we do? And so I had an old kick scooter left over from adventure racing days, and so I always try to add some of that into multi-sport events because it's just fun. So if you have done like a really long bike or run, because again, you want to look at like efficiency of like getting from place to place. You can't really beat biking and running, but then throw in, a 4-mile scooter, because a kick scooter, or throw in some rollerblading. And those for me were just sort of the fun sports. There's also like, if you are a cross country skier in the summertime, you can do roller skis, which are just like skis with rollers on them. And that's a way to cross train. And so I wanted to do more of that because it's fun. But it's still the self-propelled. I really want to get an aqua bike. We've seen people cross the Med on these, and a lot of time like a Schiller aqua bike, or even just to do that in the lake. And there's all kinds of like versions of those right now, even down to like the silly tricycle ones that you might do on vacation, like just kind of fun to try, to the Schiller ones, which are like, very serious, and you've got your biking gear and you're really trying to like move across the water. I have some fun things planned where I am now. I thought I was going to have to go to Colorado to sort of recreate, but horseback riding. That's a big one that is in a lot of adventure racing. And I actually kind of want to do that with, I'm kind of obsessed with hot air balloons. And that is sort of part of the catching air events, as when we look at like 6 categories of like where I would put, like, is it sailing? Is it rowing? Is it rappelling? Is it navigation? Is it scuba diving? Is it swimming with fins? So that's so some of those are some of our sport options. So I kind of want to I've kind of included some of those random one-off sporting ideas. I really want to include a horseback hot air balloon multi-sport. I'm kind of working on that. And so again, it's just what are you interested in? Where do you live? What lends itself to your location? When we are in the mountains, we're going to see a lot more mountain events where you're biking to the mountain or you're biking to that gulch that you're going to hike through. And we see a lot of fastest known time combinations. And I wanted to write about that, what people are doing in the mountains. But let's do it in the Midwest. And I'm sure you have your perspective of what could you do in Florida. I'm thinking lots and lots of water sports. And so for me, one of the multi-sports that I created that was sort of my Midwest answer to like the Nolan's 14 was the ride, run, row to Oklahoma. And so what I did is I ran 18 trail miles to the National Water Trail, and I alternated kayaking and then gravel biking 10 miles at a time on and off to the Oklahoma border from my house. So I multi-sported to another state, but I took advantage of what Kansas and Oklahoma had to offer. And that was a national water trail. It was a lot of great trail running, and it was a lot of great gravel biking. And so that was kind of something I created to say, hey, you can multi-sport anywhere, and you're going to use what you have. Like, you're going to want to use lots more water sports, or you're going to want to do canyoneering or coasteering if you're on the coast. But this is where I live, and these are the sports that I want to do because gravel biking is popular right now. I have a kayak, there's water in the river. And so that was something that I created. And so the book and I want to encourage people to say, what's your own version of the Nolan's 14? Like, if you live in Colorado and you want to climb mountains as fast as you can by human power, that is a great example of a multi-sport. What is a multi-sport that uses what you have around you? And now I'm sure you're thinking of cool paddle, connecting some canals or some lakes or some rivers in different ways. Because and you can travel too. We recently watched a movie with the kids, and I learned about a whole new area that I want to travel to that I of course knew about, but I never really thought of like going there and adventuring. And so now I'm thinking about that.
With the deep dive into multi-sports and just, combining different things, did you come across any sport that was just really bizarre or really out there, or something you had just never considered before? Just a whole new concept.
Oh, yes. And so that's kind of why I had to write the book, Mason, is because when I was researching, like, okay, what can I go do on the weekends? Like, I want to go do multi-sport events, and I want to swim, and I want to paddle. And I'm reading about what all of these extreme leaders are doing, and they're skateboarding across continents, and they're rowing oceans, and they're jumping off hot air balloons, and they're doing these extreme, crazy things. Well, I want to do that too, but I want to do my version from where I live. I want to do my version of like mountaineering or rappelling or ice climbing or shooting and or doing archery in the middle of it. And so probably one of my favorite things that I found was called is underwater orienteering. So if you've ever done an adventure race, there's the navigational part where you're orienteering, where you're finding your points on the map, and that's your course. Like, you have to say, okay, I'm here, I need to go to there, and this is how I'm going to get there. And so underwater orienteering is a version of scuba diving, where you use underwater measurement tools to plot a route and go from point A to B, sometimes in certain shapes. If you're not a scuba diver, I recommend doing it just like snorkeling, like an underwater obstacle course. Like, so fun. You could do it in your local lake. You could do it as part of a run, swim, bike. Again, that is just a fun thing that you could do, that is something new to try, and it sort of invigorates all of like the hard pounding endurance stuff. Another super fun thing is we talked a little bit about our dogs before we started recording, is including your animal friends. This is kind of what I love about multisport, is that I kind of wrote the book in part because I had a Siberian Husky, and he was always out running with me. So you can do bike joring and canicross and dog scooter and dog sled. So when you're taking your trip to Minnesota, definitely plan a dog sled along with your other winter sports that you want to try. So including our animal friends is definitely part of it as well.
One of the challenges with one of the well-known multi-sports, which is triathlon, is just the sheer amount of gear and the sheer the cost that it can be. And I'm talking, once you really get into it, but just having everything you need just to complete one can be a lot. How do you balance wanting to try new things, but also not necessarily wanting to invest too much into something you might not know you like yet, or just having literally a house full of adventure gear?
That is such a great question. It can. And so one of the things that I like to do is, if there is something that I really want to try, like camel riding, is when you're traveling, when you're on vacation, give that sport a try and test it out and see, okay, I'm going to try that aqua bike, or I'm going to try the outrigger canoeing, or I'm going to go sailing and see if I like it and something I want to take a class in. And so I use travel as a way to sort of try. And then because I have been an athlete for so long, I have a lot of this gear, and it's something that I have just had forever. And so I'm not going out and buying the nicest or the newest. And that's kind of the beauty of multisport, because it's not about going super fast. Like, it's not about having the most aerodynamic, most expensive helmet. And if you want to go do a triathlon and do that, that is a great way to train for a future multisport, where you might be out on the bike for 12 hours, but you're doing it, it's not supported. There's no aid stations. There's no timing. You're kind of in charge of your own stuff. And so as you do trial and error, you know that, like, what backpack works. And it's usually the oldest one that's the most comfortable, that's broken in. My kayak shoes they're just old trail running shoes that have holes in the netting because they drain water. And those are, like, honestly, the best version that works for me, because of the type of rivers that I have. Those are the kind of shoes that work. And so it's really more about borrowing, sharing, trying, asking for swim packing, cross-country swimming presents for Christmas, asking for cross-country skis for Christmas. But really, you don't have to buy or own everything. You just take advantage of when you go somewhere to try something, and just use what you have. It does not have to be perfect. 100% use what you have and create around what you already own.
Once you discover all these things and you realize anywhere you go, you could explore that area, including home, through all these different mediums. How do you, once you're open to these ideas, narrow it down to just a few things? Do you ever struggle with, like, should I explore this river this way, or should I explore this trail this way? How do you choose between all the options?
That's a good question too. And I think definitely using the seasons and your location and what do you love? And right now my husband is really into kayaking, and I did a big kayak expedition a few years ago, and I am not. I'm like just not into kayaking right now, because when you've spent when you've spent a lot of time doing something and you're just kind of like, I'm ready to move on. And so that's how I feel. Like, I want to be in the water. And so right now I'm more into doing a lot of open water swimming, exploring, and I'm letting my husband, because he wants to kayak, I'm letting him kind of do the kayak. So it's where do you feel? What do you want to do? Like, we've all been at that place where we are just so burnt out of the run training. And so switch it up. And that is the absolute beauty of multisport, is that you don't have to get to that burnout, because you can hop on the sup board, or you can get the canoe out, and you can do something that brings you joy and makes you happy. And it's okay if that changes in the fall when you switch to a wetsuit or you switch to your snow sports. That is the beauty, is that you can train every weekend, year round. Every time you go out, it's going to be different weather, different conditions, different combinations. I do have a funny story of last year. We went down to a lake to explore it, to do some really long open water swimming. And we were going to do a multi-sport to sort of recon the open water swimming event. And so we loaded up a truck with 8 different watercraft and a bike. And we pulled into the state park, and my favorite answer is my dad was driving, and the guy checking him out was like the same age, and he was like, "So what are you guys doing today?" And my dad goes, "Nothing." And like, we literally have 8 different watercraft in the truck, because we weren't sure what the water conditions were going to be. And we really learned a lot, because we thought that we were going to raft into this lake, but when we got there, there was not enough flow, there was not enough water. And so we totally had to, are we going to kayak? Are we going to pack raft? Okay, this section looks really good to swim, but I think I'm going to sup board this section because it's a really nice protected cove from the crazy waves. And so, and then we had a bike thrown in case somebody needed to like go meet somebody, or, you know, not be able to go on a back trail or ferry gear. And so some of it is that you just have to kind of love the logistics and love the planning and love the recon. And so you show up with 8 different watercraft and maybe use 2 of them. And then you go back the next weekend and have it dialed in, and you know what you're going to do. But again, it's for the love of the sport. If you don't want to do that, or you have a busy weekend, just run or bike to the gym, or run or bike to the gym and try a new class, like an aqua paddleboard class or something. The boards, the where you balance on in the water. Like, there are a lot of options. Like, you don't have to be crazy. You could just ride your bike to your hot yoga class and figure out how to get your yoga mat on your back. And that might be enough of a challenge. And I know most of the people listening, that's not going to be enough for us, but that's a way to start. And so if you just are like, you know, I just want to do 1 or 2 things, I don't want to handle the logistics, start with going by human power where you're already going. And then once you get there, you can just build and say, what sport do I want to do? What do I want to explore? What do I have where I live? Do I have really great rails to trails where I've done a little bit of running, but what if I follow the whole path? Where does it go? What mountains or hikes do you want to climb? Is there a lake, or could you bike there? Or is there sort of a weird hybrid sport? Like, have you always wanted to try ice climbing or hang gliding? I haven't tried hang gliding, but you know, it's on the list. And so when I have an opportunity, I'm absolutely going to do it.
I was going to ask, what is like a dream multi-sport adventure to you? Maybe it's something really specific. Maybe it's just a combination of the sports, or maybe it's just a location you have in mind.
Well, the great thing is that since writing this book and sort of categorizing, anytime a chance comes up to try something, even as simple as like a pedal kayak, I am on it and I am trying it in maybe a way that like I had always wanted to do that kind of thing, but I wasn't super like motivated to do it. Even just like the wild ice skating, I had heard of that and I wanted to try it, and it was amazing that I had the opportunity to do that over the winter. And so just really being open to opportunities, or finding something or a location. And so I guess maybe there are just so many things I want to try right now. In alpinism, they are using paragliding to explore and climb really high mountains. Now, I probably am not going to do that, but that is something that I'm seeing in the extreme world of multi-sport. So I really enjoy following the extreme version and then deciding like, well, how can I do that in a version that I'm comfortable with? And so probably my dream multi-sport that I want to dream up right now is living in Kansas from where I live, doing a trail run, doing some sort of fun gravel bike, going on a horseback ride, and then doing a hot air balloon, and figuring out how to link that together. Now that could be a 13, 14-hour day, and I could go a really long way in each thing, or it could just be something really fun. And it just depends on what your goals are. And so multi-sport can completely be very, very hard and very challenging. And you can get like an extreme expedition like feel from it, or it can be just something that is 6 hours on a Saturday, that you didn't have to go pay a race fee for. I just came off of a 13-hour day this Saturday doing a swim in 3 different lakes, and we had boats, and I was just doing one sport. I was just swimming, but it was so fun because each lake was a different experience and a different feel. And so I'm trying to swim the top 10 lakes in Kansas. And so it's not something that I'm going to accomplish like, in one setting, because we drove like 500 miles just to get 3 in. And so again, like that's just what I'm wanting to do and combine right now is the swimming and kayaking for my boat support. And so that's just a fun thing to do using what we have around us and what sounds good at the time.
Getting to know a place, you start to recognize those things that maybe to a newcomer, a visitor, it's all the same. How different can lakes in Kansas be? But someone who becomes, familiar with these places will start to sense those differences, and they become maybe a really exciting aspect of getting out to the next one. It's not mundane because it's like you're learning the place enough to see those differences. I find that personally exciting. Like, how different can this creek be from the other one, a couple miles away, but it can be so different. And I find that really exciting.
It's really fun because every day is different. You might have a calm, beautiful day, and it's this really pleasant, relaxing experience. And then you might have 20-mile-an-hour winds and you feel like you're swimming in a washing machine. And so there's just a beauty in consistently going out. And that is the great thing about multi-sport is it gives you a way to consistently go out. And I have a triathlon and adventure racing background. So that's always going to be kind of where I come from when I build and create. But so many people have a mountain climbing background or a hiking or backpacking, and that's kind of going to be where they start. Or you're in Florida and you want to definitely start with a paddle version. Or you're somewhere cold where there is more snow and wanting to do some of that, and even urban exploring. But definitely I feel like if you're looking for, well, where do I start? What do I do? I always like to plan a birthday event or an anniversary event, or hey, it's a long holiday weekend. We definitely need to have a multi-sport event for that. And so as you go through life, you're kind of seeing that you're creating these events, these multi-sport opportunities, and they're kind of reflecting where you are year to year. What are your interests? Where are you wanting to explore? And I had kind of drug my feet on this Kansas Lake thing. Because in years past, I was more of like, I want to travel. I want to go far away. I have the whole world to see. And I just happened to be in the right place this year. And I have already learned and felt and discovered so many, and I'm only on 5, so many things already where maybe 5 years ago, I just wasn't in that place. And so you just kind of have to, give it a try and come back to it and have those big ideas and those long-term goals that you work towards. And this gives you a way to do it. There's always going to be another sport to try, another combination, somewhere to travel, a friend to visit on a lake that has some sort of special sit ski kayak that you can try. So just having an open mind, and it gives you a great way to sort of see and approach the world in a fun way, not necessarily a competitive, how can I go faster and better, but how can I just experience more?
Aside from your adventures, what are some of the most maybe creative combinations you've seen, or one of something that really surprised you that someone put together an idea?
Oh, definitely the para-alpinism. That is just in Europe, in the Alps, there's a lot of like vol biv, like
Yeah,
bivouac,
we've had a handful of those episodes on, and it's mind blowing.
isn't it?
It's
And so like
crazy.
I'm not, I mean, I don't want to say never, because I've ended up on mountains, right? That I thought about. I've ended up in rivers that thought I'd never be in. So I don't ever say never. But for me right now, I don't see myself doing that. But taking that a step level, a higher step, and really exploring some of the highest mountains in Pakistan, in the world, and sort of the para alpinism, and then even skiing down, that's where I get my inspiration. And I don't have to do that, but I want to find my version of that. And multi-sport is what helps me do that. And it makes you excited. You want to go to the film fest, you want to follow the industry, you want to see. I would love to do open water rock climbing, do more of that. And so just by having the lens of multi-sport, I keep a list of the human powered different I'll tell you the different groups, the categories. So paddling, wheels, animal friends, catching air, covering terrain, and ropes. And so every time I see an industry leader or something extreme in one of these, I like to remember it and think about it, and try to see what I can do in my own version of that. And maybe that's just taking an archery class.
This is really cool. Where do you see the world of multisport going? Do you see anything getting ground to the point that it becomes this official thing like adventure racing? You know, any combination there, or triathlon, or do you see it continually being a little more of an individualistic pursuit where you just combine what you're really interested in and what's available to you?
Well, I think the best athletes right now are already doing multi-sport. They're up in the mountains. They're in Colorado and the Pacific Northwest, and they are already going out and they're combining pack rafting and climbing and doing the extreme and pushing themselves. And I want to do that, and I like doing that, and I want to follow people and encourage others. But I also want people to know that you can do multi-sport on the weekend. It can be just a fun thing to do on Saturday. And so I really want to define it for people, show what the extreme versions are, show how to do it in your everyday life, enjoy it. And then I really do think that we're going to see more and more of it, because people, triathlons are great, adventure racing is great, but again, it's all about speed and fast, and it's all about somebody else in control. And right now, we are all hungry for nature experiences. We're hungry for the outdoors. We have the power to create our own combinations of what we want to enjoy in the outdoors, and the timeline and the budget, and the skill set that fits us. And so I am seeing it. And hopefully we're just going to see more and more. And I feel like every day I get like a sports newsletter of like multi-sport sun hats, or multi-sport trip ideas in Colorado where you can raft and horseback ride and all of this. So I definitely seeing it. But I just think that being a multi-sport athlete for so long, it's more than just being a triathlete. It's having this openness, and it's being an explorer and exploring near, far, in between, down below, high above, all of it.
Well, take us through where we can find the book. I know it's on Amazon. Is that where you want people to go, or would you rather them go to your website, Jennifer Strong, mccon.com?
Yes. So jenniferstrongmccon.com has both books on there. It has links to Amazon. Also, you can order Go Far, my first book, and then Go Multisport, which is kind of a prequel and a sequel because it goes into kind of the beginnings and then what to do after you've done kind of single sport extremes. So order books from your favorite local bookstore. Definitely support local, especially if you're a big reader and you love books and you love shopping for books. Anywhere in the world, you can have it custom ordered, but also in the US, Barnes and Noble, Target, it's Go Multisport is definitely available wherever books are sold worldwide.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share with guests?
Well, hit me up. If there's a crazy sport that you're doing, let me know. And if there's a crazy sport combination, let's follow each other online and let's inspire each other.
I love it. No, I love what you do. I love the birthday tradition. Honestly, that's such a great way to, close one chapter and open one simultaneously. I did that this past year with the new year. And it felt so good to do. It was like killing two birds with one stone. You closed the year out well, but you felt so good going into the year. It was just great to do it right on that moment, And I'm sure the birthday is the exact same thing. You feel like you're approaching it the right way.
Yes, and it gives you a really great goal to work towards.
Exactly.
And it's different every year.
Exactly. I love that. Awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. I'm going to point folks to where to get it. We're going to give away a copy of the book too. So if that's okay, I'm happy to buy it and we'll just give it to a guest. We'll do a little challenge or something like, hey, listen for a secret word in the episode. And if you tell me what it is, you'll be able to enter to be into a drawing. We usually do that. So
I love that. That's so fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on and congrats on the new book.
Thank you, Mason. It's great. You always inspire me. And again, I'm like obsessed with every single person you've ever interviewed. And I want to do all of the things.
I see you've got a couple quotes from some big time guests of ours. Roman Dial, Alistair Humphreys. There's a lot of heavy hitters that have reviewed this. So that's exciting. Thank you so much.
And they really are the leaders. There's just not a lot of people writing. I mean, people are doing it, but they're not writing about it. And so those two are people I admire in the industry for sure. So it's a real honor to be among them. And to be a guest because this is exactly my audience and right where I want to be. So Sweet. Thank you, Mason.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great one, Mason. Thanks you so much.
All right,
bye-bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.